Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Ed Hibsch of Kenosha is a Republican candidate in Assembly District 64. Mr. Hibsch, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
When I go through your campaign social media, I find this phrase referring to the recent problems in Kenosha, the protests, the shootings, the tragedies. All this could have been avoided. So can I ask you first your thoughts on how this could have been avoided, sir?
Sure. When I first stumbled across the Facebook post about the shooting, there was a live feed at the scene shortly after it happened, and you could see a crowd was beginning to form. And I said right then and there, this is going to get bad. It's going to get out of hand. So I think, there's history here. There's what happened in Minneapolis and Denver, other cities. We should have anticipated that as soon as the shooting was public. So I think, that crowd that was around the shooting scene, they migrated downtown. That would have been the time to move some police reinforcement in, start thinking about the National Guard. I just think the city's reaction was a little too slow. I think we could have got the National Guard mobilized a lot quicker than we did and in bigger numbers that we really needed once they saw what was happening. So when I say it could have been avoided, I mean this destruction could have been avoided, the fires that were set and the businesses that were lost and all the destruction downtown. It really could have been avoided if we'd have acted quicker.
The Kenosha plus Chicago plus Portland plus Seattle has cast a whole issue on policing reforms. Senator Weingart has bills. The governor has bills. The speaker's going to form a task force. Do you think we need any specific policing reforms, Mr. Hibsch?
I don't know at the moment if we need specific reforms, but I do know we need to review it. We need to take a look at everything. The worst thing we can do right now is a knee-jerk reaction that kind of puts a Band-Aid in place on some things, but not others. We need to do a really thorough investigation and look at everything that's been going on, everything that's going on in our community, and see if we do need policy change and police reforms. Body cams has come up a lot. That seems to be like a good way to go. I'd like to hear the other side of that. Is there any downside to the body cams? But like I said, so far everything I've heard has been positive. But we need to take a really good look at it, inform some committees that will probably be ongoing. I don't think we're going to give this a go in a few months and put some reforms in, and that's it. I think it's going to constantly be reviewed as things unfold. It's just something we need to get on top of. And in the end, we probably will make some reforms. But it's a good thing that we have somebody like Dan Weingart who has some police experience that can kind of guide us in this. And I'd love to serve on one of those committees.
My final question on this subject is this. The mayor of Kenosha says he needs $30 million in aid to rebuild the city. Should some of that $30 million come from state government, do you think?
I don't know that it should. That's certainly a door we can leave open, but it sounds like there's enough federal resources to fund that amount.
Okay.
So I don't think we need state funding. I would avoid that if we possibly could. In a pinch, maybe we consider that.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about the pandemic and COVID. If COVID's effect on the economy means we don't collect, I'm going to make up a number, $1 billion in state tax revenues, and you're in the assembly, to make up that shortfall, would you cut spending or would you look at revenue uppers, tax increases or fee increases?
So the whole COVID thing, while yes, it may have resulted in this decrease in tax revenue, it's also affecting all of our pocketbooks. Okay, I've got my own business. I run a one-man limousine company out of Kenosha, and as soon as all the lockdowns happened, all my business just canceled. So I've been struggling, and millions of people in Wisconsin, I'm sure, are struggling. So now is not the time to hit us with another tax increase. We really need to look at spending and tighten the belt. This is a pandemic. We need to do what we can to eliminate unnecessary spending and like I said, tighten the belt, at least in the short term, to get us all through this.
Okay. The role that hospitals are playing nationally and, of course, in Wisconsin in treating COVID-19 patients. Does this mean if you're voting on the next state budget, hospitals should get an even greater priority than they may have in the current budget, Mr. Hibsch?
Well, I understand that they do get a pretty high priority at the moment. Certainly something to look at, see if they've been impacted by this in a way that they do need some assistance. Something to look at. I don't know if I'd commit to voting in favor of that at this point.
Okay. The bill that says that organizations and businesses, if they've tried to comply with COVID-19 protocols to protect their patients, customers, or employees, they couldn't be sued over a COVID positive. Is this a bill you could vote for?
That's something I could agree with. We have too many frivolous lawsuits as it is. If companies are doing everything they can, following the guidelines and providing a safe environment for employees, customers, patients, and the like, I don't think they should be sued if somebody happens to catch a virus, which can't necessarily be traced back to that business either, because we never know where people contract it. It would truly be a frivolous lawsuit, and I would not support that.
Okay. If on September 28th, the governor has a decision to extend the statewide mask order or to let it die, let it lapse, what do you hope he does on September 28th, Mr. Hibsch?
I would like to see him not renew the mask mandate. Understandable if it needs to be a mandate in certain areas. I never agreed to the whole statewide thing, because what's good for Milwaukee is not necessarily good for somebody upstate. I think it should have been a little more left to local control if they want mandates or not. It's certainly a great guideline. I don't mind wearing a mask in the stores and things when we have to. It's not a huge inconvenience, but I think there needs to be a little more local control there. And, leaving people to be responsible. If you walk in a place and nobody has masks and you do, maybe you leave. But I don't think controlling it through a mandate is really the way to go. Hoping it'd be more voluntary and just people using common sense.
As neighboring Illinois legalizes both medical and recreational marijuana, what's your position on that issue?
Well, I'm definitely opposed to recreational marijuana. We've seen too many bad effects in the states that have gone that route. I am open to medicinal use of marijuana. I've actually seen the benefits of it through a relative who's gone that route, and it's like night and day. I do believe there are some medicinal benefits, and that would be a way to go, but we also have to be very, very careful about how it's controlled, how it's managed, and making sure that just not everybody can get a medical marijuana card and basically have the same effect of having it legal recreationally. So I'd favor medical marijuana use, but strictly controlled.
The debate in the Capitol over who should draw the next congressional and legislative district lines. The governor wants a People's Maps Commission to draw the lines, then send it to the legislature to enact. What's your position on who should draw the lines?
I've seen the governor's list of members for that committee. It doesn't seem to be very unbiased, in my opinion. But bottom line is, it's in the Constitution, and I'm a strong supporter of both the U.S. Constitution and the state Constitution. It would take something major to run something counter to the Constitution. I believe it was set up that way for a reason way back, and we need to respect that.
Let's talk about property taxes, because we're a high property tax state. The caps, the limits on property tax levies that school boards and local governments have been living with for more than 20 years. Do you think those caps and limits should be continued into the future?
I think we should. Again, given the climate right now and the fact that people are struggling, we don't want to hit them with more taxes yet again. So I think we need to try to keep those in place, at least in the shorter term, hopefully in the longer term as well.
To reduce the reliance on property tax, should we look at alternative sources of revenue for local governments? Democratic Representative Goyke in Milwaukee says if a referendum passed, Milwaukee could levy a 50-cent sales tax. Do you support alternative revenue sources for local governments? Is it time to look at those?
Well, again, I'm opposed to increasing any sort of taxes or imposing any new taxes. But if we're going to go that route, it makes sense to do it on a local level and let the local leaders make a decision on that and vote on that. But again, I only as a last resort, should we increase taxes at all.
Does that include the gas tax? You know, last year the governor called for an increase in our gas tax. The gas tax is now 30.9 cents a gallon. Could you consider voting to raise that gas tax or no?
Not likely. Again, only as a last resort. If the meaning of that is to fund some highway construction, let's see if we can find another way to fund it. Let's see if we can balance the budget somewhere else and free up some money. We've managed to get by this far, building our roads and not increasing the gas tax. So let's see if we can stick with what we got now and make it happen.
When a school or a local government plans a major public works project, should they have to give a preference to Wisconsin businesses?
Not a flat out preference, but I believe the competitive bidding process needs to stay in place. If they are competitive, I would certainly favor a local business doing the work, and that should be a no-brainer. But we shouldn't spend more money just to engage with a local business for projects like that. I would encourage local. I'm a local businessman myself, and that's a good thing when we can do it. But if not, competitive bidding needs to take precedence.
We've talked about a lot of issues. Is there any other issue important to your campaign that you want to bring up now?
I can't think of any specific issues.
Okay. Then you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 3?
Sure, I can do that. My opponent he's young. He's kind of inexperienced. By contrast, I'm old. I have a lot of life experience that I can bring to the table. I've had jobs. I've lost jobs. I've had to get my own health care on the open market. I know what challenges that poses. And I think we can do better if we take a look at how we manage healthcare in the state and have some better options for self-employed people like myself, because I'm struggling with that. So I think my life experiences, I bring more to the table, and I would strive to be more visible and more a part of the community, and making sure people know that that's why I'm in office, is to be there to help them. And I thrive on helping people. I love meeting people and talking about their issues. And I'm hearing a lot going door to door. People want change.
Okay, thank you. Ed Hibsch of Kenosha is a Republican running in the 64th Assembly District. The election is November 3rd. Mr. Hibsch, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Have a good day, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.